And really delighted to have Rob with me this morning. So it's
Hello.
yeah, great to have you here this morning, Rob. We thought we'd go live and start to use this live stream method to create some conversation and discussion in the L&D Mastermind. But before we do that, I think the important thing to do is to remind everyone about next week's event. So this time next week, literally 7 days from now, we will be going live with our panel for our very first L&D Mastermind Question Time Live with Rob Moores Consulting. So Rob, as you are the man behind who's been driving this event, I'll hand over to you and you can share who we've got coming along next week.
Absolutely, James. So I think the important thing, again, just to reiterate from one of my posts yesterday, is that we've got a couple of registration links up for the event. One is in the Facebook page for the L&D Mastermind. The other is on my company page on LinkedIn, Rob Moores Consulting. And that's purely around you being able to, A, register to give us a heads up of how many people are coming. B, you're then able to make sure you've got that in your diary, and the systems will remind you that you've got that booking in so you don't miss the event. But thirdly, you'll be able to obviously see any updates that come in there as well. So as we start posting into those groups about things like updates to the schedule or any sort of questions that we're going to put to the guests, those sort of things, you'll see it in there. However, on the day itself, the way to watch the event is exactly like you're doing now. So it will be broadcast live to my LinkedIn channel and live to the L&D Mastermind Facebook group. James, will it also be going to any of the other groups feeds from your side as well?
So from our side, it will be going out to the LinkedIn page. So the L&D Mastermind LinkedIn page, the L&D Mastermind Facebook page, L&D Mastermind Facebook group. It will be going to my Twitter feed, I believe,
Nice.
and it will be going to our brand new L&D Mastermind YouTube channel. Which, if you stumble across it, folks, it's not set up properly yet. So I will be getting in there and getting some imaging and things like that going. But there is now a YouTube channel for L&D Mastermind as well. So yeah, and good morning to everyone who's sending their greetings in as well. Good morning
Hey,
to you.
everyone. So guest-wise, James, we've got obviously my good self and your good self hosting the event, and we'll both be doing a kind of short 15-20 minute talk, each one at the start, one at the end, just to kind of set up the day and also kind of look at reflections of the day. But the main part in the middle 2 hours of the event is for a kind of question time Q&A with our panel of experts. Now, our panel consists of a variety of different people from different backgrounds when it comes to both leadership, coaching, and L&D. So what I wanted from that was that kind of diversity of thought when it comes to how can we move ourselves as L&D away from this pigeonhole of being these order takers that constantly go through recycles and restructures and redundancies. How can we move away from that and being frustrated that whilst we're busy, people aren't seeing our value enough to really invest and keep us? How can we move from order takers to being wave makers in the organization? So we're actually really adding great value, but also value that's appreciated and seen by those decision makers within that same organization. And the people we've got come along represent, like I said before, a kind of diversity of thought in that area. We've got Charles Jennings, who's the co-founder of the 70-20-10 Institute. And if you've seen anything in the past on 70-20-10, you've probably heard of Charles himself. If not, take a look on the internet, go and Google 70-20-10 and have a look up beforehand. But very much in terms of that whole approach to learning in the business rather than just training, Charles will be talking us through how this is imperative we tie what we do as a learning function to the performance of the organization. We've got Joe Wright coming along, who's the CEO of Coaching Culture. Now, Joe comes from a slightly different angle in terms of learning, because it's more about, as it would suggest, the culture we create in an organization when it comes to coaching, and trust being at the heart of that. Enabling leaders, for example, to be able to have coaching conversations with their people without the pressure of having to be accredited coaches. We've also got David James, who's Chief Learning Officer at Loop and host of the L&D podcast. So David comes along with lots of experience in tying, again, L&D through to performance. And what he loves talking about there is learning in the flow of work. How can we actually make this stuff a lot simpler rather than building up these big chunky pieces of work that L&D tend to get involved in that kind of loses the point of why we're there in the first place, but also it's very difficult and often not wanted by the people that we're serving. And lastly, but by no means least, we've got Satnam Sagoo, who was working for the British Red Cross and now has moved across to the Imperial College Healthcare Trust. And she's the Chief People Officer there and also works with the LPI. And what I'm really excited about Satnam bringing to this is the kind of real world experience, because some of the stuff that we complain about in L&D is not having enough people, not having enough budget. You know, to be able to have these types of impact, we need to do more of this, that, and the other with more people to support it. Now, I'm really interested with Satnam, having worked at, first of all, British Red Cross and now in the NHS, where I know that obviously resources are tighter than they are anywhere. How has she had such a great impact in the things that she's done with her team and her vision that she set up from the start in these places with those limited resources? Because she has got some fantastic stories about her contributions. And it was actually an outstanding contribution to learning that Satnam won at the recent Learning Awards for the LPI as well. So I think in terms of that, what we're hoping to do is you'll see me posting on LinkedIn and Facebook this week, just asking if you've got any specific questions you'd like to ask the guys. So please, please, please send those to myself and or James, whether that's a question for the group or whether that's a question for an individual, one of those panelists. And we're just looking to get some debate going there, some conversation that will really be useful for you guys as you're listening.
No, absolutely, Rob. I think it's going to be a fantastic event, and I am really, really looking forward to it. I think you've pulled together a fantastic panel of experts. So massive doff my metaphorical hat that I don't have on right now to you, my friend. But yeah, what a fantastic panel of experts. I'm really, really looking forward to the kind of questions we're going to have, the discussion we're going to have. That's this time next week, guys. So 9:30 on the 28th of April. Join us live on all those channels. And as I say, we will be joined by that panel of experts and be posing your questions to them. So please also either on the comments here or directly to Rob or myself, feel free to DM us with any questions you have for that panel about how we can take L&D from being order takers to wave makers. How can we change some of this cycle that we go through? So,
and any of your questions as well, guys. Obviously, if you've got scenarios that you're working on at the minute, things that have really worked in your organization to achieve this stuff, or challenges that you've got at the minute in terms of, I think one of the questions that's come through, and I won't spoil it by saying who this one's for, but is more around how do you actually get the influence from the senior leaders to allow L&D to go and try and push and be wave makers in that organization more. So if you're getting some challenges there, some specific challenges or projects that got coming up that you need to try and do differently, by all means, put some of those specifics into the questions and we can ask the panel that.
No, absolutely. And I think, again, that's such a critical thing, getting that senior level buy-in, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And with that buy-in then comes so many doors open wide for you, but it's getting that buy-in in the first place that's a challenge. So
I'm loving I'm loving the global presence we've got on here, by the way.
It's fantastic,
from Singapore,
isn't it?
Who'd have thought?
It's amazing, isn't it? The world is such a small place now. It really, really is. It's amazing that we can all join up on technology and use technology. Fantastic. So yeah, that is next week. So 28th, 9:30 a.m. UK time. So please join us, guys. We've got that panel of experts and we will be posing your questions to them for our very first L&D Mastermind Live question time event. And as I say, put together fantastically by the wonderful Rob Moore's Consulting. So what I thought we'd do today, as I say, I want to start using these lives a bit more to create conversation, and create sort of some thoughts and some value to our L&D Mastermind members. So what I thought I'd do today is really go back round, I guess, and start to think about, well, why the L&D Mastermind community exists in the first place, and why I set this up sort of, God, 4 or 5 years ago it was now that we initially started to talk about this and to pull people together. When we started out face to face in Manchester, and then COVID came along and stopped us being able to do things face to face. So then we went online and social media. So we're really at a point now with the groups where the technology we've got working in the background, the new website, the app that is rolling forwards, where I want to sort of pause and sort of start to think about, what do we want from this community? What's this community all about? And really sort of revamp some of the things that we're doing. So if you are a Connect member, which is our monthly subscription membership, we will be writing out to you very shortly, and we're looking to revamp that and sort of come up with some ideas about that. And then we'll be running a poll in the Facebook group about what kind of things we'd like to see. But I guess while I've got you on, Rob, it would be great to kind of ask you some questions around, well, why the L&D Mastermind? Because you've been a member of the community for around 2 years now. I think it has been. So why is community so important to you, Rob?
As you know, James, like my background is 20 plus years in L&D, and kind of giving a sneak peek into next week's event, I guess, the 70-20-10 model that Charles Jennings obviously promotes a lot. It's quite an important reflection tool for me about how I go about things. And I, like most people, have fallen into the trap in the past of thinking it's all about training.
Yeah.
That's how we learn things, go on courses and we learn things. It isn't, in that 20 space that Charles talks about, it is around how do we socialize learning. And sometimes, I think it's just as important to drop the word learning, because it suddenly sounds a bit formal again. How do we just socialize? How do we actually just share knowledge, experiences to help each other just either avoid traps that some of us have fallen into, or just with, I think one of your things is saying why so many L&D teams just repeat the same work across many different teams, many different organizations across the world, when we could just share that stuff. And I think for me, that's the idea about community. I go back to when I was doing my CIPD qualification. And what I found really good is that whether it was by luck or judgment, a lot of the people that were doing it at the same time as me had been in the industry of L&D or HR for a while. And what was really good, it wasn't just about taking all the textbooks and the theory and the knowledge that were being passed to us at face value. We were able to challenge that knowledge and those theories with real world evidence and practice from our own lives. But equally, our own experiences could be challenged by the theory and the knowledge that was being displayed to us. And then we could talk to each other and help each other out with these things. And we did, the examples and the future projects that we've got that others had done. So for me, community is about just being able to just kind of say, you know what, sometimes if I'm struggling with something or I need some ideas, or I actually think I'm not struggling with something, but I just want to get a temperature check or ask a few questions of people or get some support on it. Just being able to just put a note out there. And this is when I see our community working really well, is that loads of answers start to come about things that I could try or things that I could go away and look at, or people that might be able to support me. I think the power of social is when someone just tags a name in saying, hey, do you think you could help this person, or have a chat with them?
Yeah.
You're not alone. And so often in L&D, even in larger L&D teams, you often do feel alone, because your little function or your little discipline can be quite siloed. Within the community, you're going to find people who are doing similar roles in similar organizations. So bounce the ideas off them, get that kind of outside perspective on what you're working on, and you just might find the solution a bit quicker.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, Rob. And as I say, that's part of the reason why I set up the L&D Mastermind, was because, it is all about sharing knowledge, sharing wisdom, sharing experience. And And yeah, I think the point you just made there about feeling alone, I've certainly felt that in my 20-year career in L&D. Even when I was working for the world's largest bank, you still felt alone because we were the L&D team. And, it's kind of like, it's in these big organizations, it's almost as if you don't fit anywhere. You kind of fit under HR, but then operations, but then finance team. And you kind of, I think L&D often feels like it hasn't got a home. And so, yeah, I wanted to create a bit of a home for our members, and somewhere where they could feel at home and feel like they could be themselves. For anyone who's followed my LinkedIn recently, you will know that compassion is a big thing that I'm kind of exploring at the moment and trying to understand compassion. And I think that really ties in with this, because for me, what I want to create is a compassionate community, a community where people reach out to each other, and where everyone feels that they can play a role and there is no judgments or anything like that. Just about everyone's here to help each other. So that's my aim, if you like, compassionate community. So Rob, you've been, as I say, a member for some time now. One of the things that you are is one of our approved suppliers. And so I just wondered again if I could throw another question to you around. So why did you decide to become an approved supplier on the L&D Mastermind?
I think there's a couple of reasons behind that. I think one of them is that the people that I support through my business is probably 75% L&D teams, leaders, directors, all those sorts of people, and there's a captive audience within the mastermind group of those types of people who can help, looking for it. It's much more difficult when you're not a member of that sort of group. But secondly, I think it becomes more organic as well. So as an approved supplier, I like the fact that I don't have to come across as very salesy in the group. Whereas when you're just kind of cold calling people or cold emailing people or whatever it might be, we've all been there, is that there's no kind of warmth to the conversation. There's no easy way of expressing intent. There's no easy way of exploring the issues until you can get a conversation. Whereas I think, that the conversations all start in the community is how we can help each other. And by the way, if you're interested, I'm an approved supplier, so I can help you with this stuff. If that's interesting to you, give me a shout. There's also others as well. So I think that that's really interesting. But the second part of it is it just helps me in another way to achieve what I wanted to do. And that was that, I've worked in many teams, L&D teams across big organizations, small organizations, independent organizations, public organizations, and they're all very similar in the way that L&D is often viewed or struggles. And I just want to be able to share my learns with that community. And sometimes those community members just want a bit of advice, and that's fine. And sometimes they need something more formal, whether that's coaching or workshops or come in and speak to leaders, do some leadership coaching, whatever it might be. And that just finds an easier way for people to know they've seen me, they can trust me before they even think about me as a supplier.
Yeah, and I think that again is one of the reasons why I wanted to create this approved supplier community within our L&D Mastermind community, is to kind of give you guys that platform to showcase your expertise, because you guys are doing amazing work. But you don't have to do that cold calling, hey, look at me, I'm special kind of thing. You can actually show that expertise within the group and build that trust. And as we all know, people buy from people they trust, and it's as simple as that.
Well, it's the Simon Sinek thing, isn't it? People don't buy what you do, they buy who you are.
Yeah, 100%.
And I often do that. There'll be people looking at this live video now that'll be going, oh, I might give Rob a shout because I think he could help us with something. There'll be others looking at it going, oh, I wouldn't like Rob coming to our organization because I don't think it'd work. There will be like that. And that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. But that's an opportunity, I think, without a community and without the kind of idea of an approved supplier model within that community of people we know that can trust and provide those types of services we know work, it can be difficult to get that support and start to understand that. And quite often you don't know if you can trust the people coming in until they're in.
Yeah, 100%. And trust is one of those things. It takes time to build trust.
Mm.
You know, I train people on trust, so you know, you got all kinds of things that help to create trust. And yeah, it's one of those things that will take time, but hopefully with this platform and with this community, we're providing a space for approved suppliers to build that trust with members and to showcase your expertise. So again, another
I've just
question for
noticed,
you, Rob.
James, we've got a hi from Kuala Lumpur now. I've seen there from
Yes.
Ulrika,
Yeah, yeah.
and she's loving
So
the
all
idea of
from around the world.
compassionate community, James.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah. No, I think it's definitely compassion is a it sounds I want to say compassion is a passion of mine. Does that even work as English language? I don't know, but hey,
It sounds all
it
right
is.
to me.
It's becoming a passion of mine, kind of exploring compassion and how it works. And actually the way compassion opens up and unlocks people and emotions and feelings and all that kind of stuff. I could go on for hours, and I'm sure we'll do another live at some point where we talk all about compassion and the
Yeah.
power of compassion. In fact, on that quick note, though, something that I came across today was Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, was today talking about how kindness is not a weakness, and I
Mm,
love that. Love that. It's not a weakness at all. So yeah, we'll have a conversation about compassion another time.
absolutely.
So Rob, another one from me. Again, not everyone knows this, but again, being completely transparent, Rob also is a volunteer in our L&D Mastermind team. So Rob actually volunteers his time to help with the running of the L&D Mastermind community. So I guess again, the question comes out to you: what is it about this community that would make you volunteer your time to actually support the running of it, Rob?
You just sweet talk me, James. That's what it was. Um, no, I think there's again there's the side of it obviously that I'm running my own business, and I provide coaching and workshops. I do some associate work, but what I really liked about and this is going back to before the timeframes that you were talking about, probably 3-4 years ago, is that I like the idea of what you were trying to build, but more importantly, what appeared to be the reason behind it,
Yeah,
which was that piece around getting people together to help each other share the problems, building that community, so that safe space, so people aren't working alone, they can bounce ideas, all that sort of stuff. And I really bought into that, and I really love that vision. And having spoke to you before I officially kind of joined as a volunteer, that vision remained consistent. This wasn't a community about making lots and lots and lots of money and being a millionaire. This was about creating a community that is owned by the community, that they can dip into whenever they need support.
yeah,
And the things
100%.
that we do and the way that we're going to do them all filters back through that reason for doing it in the first place.
Mm,
So hopefully, I think it comes across that I'd say 95% plus of the posts that I put on LinkedIn, that you put into the group, that Scott puts in there, and Chris and Emma and all the other volunteers that we've got, they're not constantly pitching what we do and trying to sell. They're all about engagement. They're all about supporting. They're all about chipping into other people's problems or challenges or opportunities and trying to support them. So that was in for me. That was just a way of being able to, I think you put it nicely when you first set it up, the way of being able to give something back, that have
yeah,
got 20 years plus of experience, that just might help one person in the community navigate something they're in at the minute.
yeah,
That doesn't mean I have all the answers. It doesn't mean the answers that I do have are the right answers. But somebody might just listen to something I've got to say, or be able to put out there, or a question that I could ask them, or whatever it might be that just gives that difference to that person on that day. And that's why the community is there. So that's why I volunteered.
Oh, no, brilliant, Rob. And yeah, no, I really, really appreciate the time you put into the community and the support that you give, mate. It's really, really valued, 100%. But I think you're absolutely right. It is about creating a community where everyone feels safe, everyone feels that they can contribute. Um, And really, you kind of lead me on to my last question, which is one that I'd love everyone to get involved with. So, you know, if you want to put it into the comments of this, but as I say, we are going through a period where I'm feeling like revamping, shifting things up, maybe shifting some things down, maybe that aren't necessarily adding value to our community. So, you know, with the future ahead, Rob, what kind of things would you like to see in the L&D Mastermind community?
I think, I think we've had long chats about this, and I think, this sort of stuff that we're doing right now, more of it, I think I'd love to see in the community. So, just live, reflective, thought sharing videos like this.
Okay.
So, one of the things we're particularly bad at as L&D practitioners is taking our own advice sometimes.
Mhm.
That stepping away, just taking a moment, reflecting, all those sort of things. And one of the things we tend to do is then say, right, I'm going to get 5 minutes, and instead of doing that, I'm going to go and whack a comment onto the L&D Mastermind group or onto LinkedIn or whatever it might be, or do a quick video about something I think's important. And quite often it is important, but to you, that's just draining you again. So I quite
Yeah.
like the idea, and what I'm going to challenge myself to do a little bit more is just like, come on and do like a 5-minute live video or put a post onto LinkedIn or whatever it might be that is purely around maybe a challenge that I'm facing or a reflection that I've had that day based on an experience or any support that I need. So it's actually helping me look after myself and be more of a reflective L&D practitioner, but at the same time driving that type of support we need inside the community. So I'd love to see a lot more of that joining. I think what I'd love, the other thing as well, is that just we've got. I mean, how many members have we now got in the community roughly, James? Without putting you
Oh,
on the spot
just
too
shy
much.
of just shy of 6,000, I believe we're at now, Rob.
Yeah. Now, I would say, forget one person. It's impossible for 6,000 people to know all the things that have been written and practiced or tried or experimented around when it comes to L&D. However, the combined knowledge of that 6,000 is far greater than any individual within it.
Yeah.
I occasionally see Charles Jennings himself posting and commenting inside the group. And Charles is one of those people that would probably get accused of like thinking he already knows everything about learning,
Mm.
because of his experiences and what he's done in his career. But he doesn't. He openly lives to his own model and says, by community sharing this stuff, he's learning as well as he goes along with this stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see kind of, I think, officially they're called communities of practice. That's kind of one of the terms for them. But I'd love to see the community come together and share the things that they've seen. Don't assume the next person has seen the video that you've watched because it was on a course that you went to. Even if it's something that's in the top 20 videos watched in TED Talks, that doesn't mean everyone's watched it. And that might just change somebody's life completely. Whether it's a book you've read, a video you've seen on YouTube, a playlist of videos, a podcast, whatever it is, share that stuff. Share the stuff that's lighting a fire in you, because I guarantee if you didn't know about it and it's given you something, there's probably another 3,000 or 4,000 people in the community that might think the same.
Yeah. What do you mean, Rob? Do you mean not everyone in the world's seen the Power of Words video with the blind man in Glasgow?
No. Exactly that, exactly that. Well, I'm a big proponent of, or big influence on my career is Simon Sinek.
Yeah,
And if anyone out there knows him, please, when you
that's
ask him if
another
he'll
one,
come
the
on my
golden
podcast,
circles.
please get him to come on my podcast if anyone out there knows him, because I just get nowhere. But anyway, it's a big influence on me. And I hold back from saying it sometimes because I think, oh, people just seen that a million times. And I only think that because I've seen it a million times and I've read all these books. And the amount
Mm,
of times I mention it and people go, no, I've never heard of him. Why would they have done? He's not
true.
David Beckham. He's not Boris Johnson, and probably a good thing. I wouldn't be following him if he was. But I think really get out there and just share the stuff that you've seen, because you just don't know
Yeah,
who's going to benefit from it. And people have always got the option. No, that didn't work for me, or I've already seen that, so I won't watch it. Share.
100%. But
Share,
I
share, share.
agree with you, and I think that you're absolutely right. You know, the power of reflection, and I oddly enough, I do a lot of reflection, and I work it into my sort of habits and things like that. But I don't always share it with our community, and I think you're absolutely right. The more we can reflect and think about what we're faced with, what we're challenged with, how we've overcome it, and share that amongst each other, is really, really powerful. So definitely jump on a live, do a quick post. What have I learned this week? All that kind of stuff is fantastic reflective learning that we can definitely do more of within the community. So I love that, Rob. Thank you for that suggestion. But guys, if you have any suggestions of what you'd like to see in the L&D Mastermind community moving forward, please either drop me a line, feel free to direct message me. More than happy for that to happen, or pop it on the chat of this video. But that's pretty much it for today, guys. So thank you so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed that. We aim to do more of these kind of interview style, just jump on a live, have a little bit of an interview, ask a few question type events. So let us know if you're enjoying this kind of content. And final reminder, next week, this time, 9:30, we will be having our first question time event. So yeah, please make sure you join us for that. Any final words for you, Rob?
If you've got any questions, please remember, if you've got any questions that you would like to ask the panel on the day, send them through to either me or James, whether that's questions from me or James, because we'll still be hanging around when the panel's there as well. We're not just going to go off for a Costa and leave them to it. But whether it's for me or James or Satnam or David or Joe or Charles or all of us combined, or to two of them at once, whatever it might be, because we'll get people to kind of talk and debate that together. So we're not going to pick one person out and get them talking for half an hour. We're going to talk about these subjects. So please send your questions through, anything you've got for the day. And just to reiterate again, one final time, we will be live. So the registration isn't going to give you a link to join an event. The registration is there for the other reasons I mentioned earlier on. So please make sure 9:30 next Thursday, you're either checking out the L&D Mastermind or my YouTube channel or the Facebook group for L&D Mastermind or my LinkedIn channel, and you will see us live with these wonderful people that are joining us.
Brilliant, Rob. So thank you so much, mate. And yeah, looking forward to next week.
Perfect stuff. Have a good one, James. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Cheers, everyone. See you all soon.